Hello everyone and welcome to the final day of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz tournament, and it's not only the final day, it's a game from the final round, Hikaru Nakamura versus Jeffery Xiong, and a lot of you have requested it. It's a very fun game and it features probably the most popular opening in online chess, which is of course the Bongcloud, and it's not very often that someone would play this against 2700 plus Grandmaster, but it is exactly what happened here. And okay, some consider this the Bongcloud. Magnus Carlsen said that he considers f3 followed by king to f2. The actual Bongcloud, sorry about that, but it doesn't really matter, as if you play king to, e2 or f2, I think all of that is considered the Bongcloud. So Hikaru goes e4, we have e5, and here king to e2. The Bongcloud is on the board, well, it's a very strange thing to play against anyone, especially against someone as strong as Jeffery Xiong. Because if you put this position on any engine, it will tell you black is winning. But that's easier said than done. I mean, you have to still play very good moves and you have to play a good game. Now, White's main issue here is that he's blocking the queen, he's blocking the development of the bishop. He's going to have to waste at least 3 to 4 more moves at the castle artificially at some point. And now the question is, can black take advantage of this immediately, or will he have to try and slow play it? Now, the worst thing you could do is just go all out and try to checkmate the white king, because that will pretty much never work and you're just going to lose the game. So Xiong just continues developing naturally. He attacks the pawn here, and he's just gonna try and go for a normal game, he will just hope that Hikaru's king on e2 will be a big enough problem in itself to just ruin his game. So here d3, there is a game actually in database where knight to c3 was played, but here Hikaru goes d3, and it is as of move 3 that we have a completely new game. We have d5 by Xiong. Of course, makes sense as you add another attacker to the pawn here and you want to open up the center, as Hikaru's king still is on e2. Knight d2, adding another defender, and now knight to c6. Knight to c6. We have c3 by Hikaru, controlling that knight, and b6 now. At some point, the bishop might come to this diagonal. The king still is on e2. We have queen to c2, and now bishop to b7. Knight g2 f3, Hikaru continues developing, and queen to d7, preparing to castle queen side. We have b4 by Hikaru. He's like saying, I really don't mind that my king is on e2. I'm just gonna start attacking on the queen side. So here Xiong castles, and now a3. So it's a really funky setup. a3, b4, c3. There's some action going on here in the center, and there's a king on e2. So at some point this king will have to go somewhere. So we'll see what happens. King b1. King b8, Xiong still not doing anything crazy. He's still just normally developing as if Nakamura's king was, for example, on g1, rook on f1, and the bishop on e2. It would be an interesting game. Bishop to b2 by Hikaru, and g6 now. And finally, king to e1. Now Hikaru will try to develop the bishop, the rook, and get the king to safety. We have bishop to h6, and now rook to d1, and of course rook h to e8. And if you look at the position now, Jeffery's position is just wonderful. He has a very nicely developed knights. The bishops are slicing across the board. The rooks are beautifully placed here on the D and on the E file. And if the position now opens up, it's pretty much a win for black. So here bishop to E2, and now knight to H1, H5, preparing to shift the knight over to F4. We have B5 by Hikaru, and knight to A5, and now C4. And with this little maneuver, Hikaru has successfully chased this knight to the edge of the board, but it's of little use if you get checkmated. So here knight to F4, putting pressure on the G2 pawn. So bishop back to F1 by Hikaru. Still the king stuck on e1, and now d captures on c4. A bit faster was d captures on e4, as there's much more pressure here on the e4 pawn, and also you will have support for f5. However, Xiong goes for d captures on c4, which is still a perfectly fine move. We have d captures and only now f5. So the king is in the center, you have to bust open the center. c5 by Hikaru. He continues attacking with his king on e1, threatening c6 to win some material, but Xiong doesn't care. He just plays f captures on e4. We have c6 by Hikaru, now with a double attack on the bishop and on the queen. and just knight captures on c6. With this maneuver, he grabs 2 pawns and gets his knight away from the edge of the board. Captures, and now knight captures on e5 with an attack on Jeffery's queen and the bishop here on c6. So here, if you do pretty much anything other than the move that was played in the game, it's really not going to be all that great. You either play rook captures on e5 and allow bishop captures, or what was played in the game, knight to d3 with check. And now it doesn't really matter what white plays here, because even if you capture the knight or you try something, well, you're going to have problems because the rook and the king are on the same file. So here Hikaru played bishop captures on d3, but now just e captures on d3, attacking the queen. And also you will not be capturing anything today because, well, now the knight is pinned. So queen to c4 by Hikaru. Still with pressure on the bishop here, although as long as there's this pin, you will not be able to do anything about it. Now bishop captures on g2. Attacking Hikaru's rook to g1, and now bishop back to b7. And here Hikaru tried queen to h4, now putting pressure on the bishop here. And it's a very interesting position. Xiong still with a beautiful bishop pair. As you can see, the rooks are really, really awesome here. It's a terrible position for Hikaru. And there are so many winning moves here for Xiong, like just moving the bishop is winning, queen to b5 is winning, going after the bishop. However, the move Xiong plays is not so much winning. He played queen to f5, now with a double attack on the knight here, but Hikaru says, okay, if I'm counting this right, I'm just going to be up a lot of material if I just capture the bishop. And this is exactly what Hikaru does. He goes queen captures on h6, we have rook captures on e5, bishop captures, and now queen captures with check. And now Hikaru's king is in a terrible position, but if it's not checkmated, then Hikaru is just up a whole rook. So here, queen back to e3 by Hikaru, and now queen captures on h2, attacking the rook, king f1, and now queen to h5, putting pressure on the other rook as well. We have f3, and now bishop to c6, with ideas that maybe if at some point this pawn is captured, bishop to b5 could be really problematic for white. So queen g5, now that Hikaru is up a rook, he just wants to trade everything. So queen h3 check, of course Xiong cannot allow a queen trade here, king f2, and now queen to h2 with check. And of course Hikaru no longer satisfied with the adjusted rook to g2, attacks Xiong's queen, queen back to d6, and now rook to e1. We have rook to f8, putting pressure on the f3 pawn, even though the knight is still defending it. King back to g1. We have rook to f5, attacking Hikaru's queen, and the queen to e7. Hikaru just offers a trade. We have queen to f4, but now Hikaru does the only thing reasonable. He goes after the d3 pawn, which means queen to d8 with check. This is what Hikaru does. Queen d8 check, king b7, and queen captures on d3. And without the passed d3 pawn, it's just a much worse position for black. Like we could say it's a worse position for white, but white is up a rook, so that's why his position is not all that terrible. We have rook to d5 going after the queen. If the queen moves, you might be able to capture the knight, but just queen e3. So everything is nicely defended. Queen to h4, and now queen to f2, blocking the queen. Queen back to a4, and now rook to e3. Hikaru just keeps everything nicely defended. Queen to d1 with check, but now just queen to e1. Of course, Hikaru only needs to trade and he will be winning. Queen to a4 and rook to c3 now. So what do you do here? Rook to h5 by Xiong, trying to stir some trouble here, but rook to g4. Hikaru is just lifting one rook by rook, you know, the lifts are happening. So queen to a5, and now queen to c1 with a double attack on the bishop here. We have queen to e5, hoping that if rook captures on c6, then Xiong has queen to e3 check, king g2, and queen to e2 check, where Hikaru would be forced to accept a draw by repetition, because if you go king g3, queen to h2 will be checkmate. The king doesn't have anywhere to go. So after his queen to e5 move, Hikaru, not want to be tricked easily, goes knight to f1, just covers all the important squares here. And here queen to e6, just defending that bishop. But now it's a completely lost position, so feel free to pause the video here and win the game for Hikaru while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on adding more attackers to the c6 bishop. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's the fairly simple rook g to c4. And now there's a triple attack on the bishop, and you cannot add any more defenders than there already are. Like, okay, you could play rook to c5, but I mean, trading down does not help you when you're down a rook. So there's really not much here. Xiong played bishop to b5, but now Hikaru just breaks through. Rook captures on c7 with check, king a6, and now even a4, offering a pawn to open up the a file as well. So bishop back to e2, but now rook to e3 with a double attack. So the next move is forced. Rook to g5 check. This is not possible. It wasn't. This check was not possible before because the queen was covering this square. But king f2, and now there is no. There's really not much you can do. The bishop has no squares. All of these squares are taken, so you cannot really move the bishop. Xiong played queen to h3, hoping for some maybe blunder from Hikaru, but Hikaru just played king captures on e2, and it was in this position on move 52 that Jeffery Xiong resigned the game. And what a victory for Hikaru Nakamura in the final round of the St. Louis Blitz tournament, winning with none other than the Bongcloud. Now here you resign because, well, you're down a rook and a piece, and of course you don't have anything with best play. Black is getting checkmated in let's say some 12 moves, and the question is, why did Hikaru go for the Bongcloud here? Did he lose some sort of a bet with someone, maybe with his viewers, or maybe he just wanted to show Jeffery who's boss? None of that, actually. He already had his place secured in the tournament, and it was going to be the exact same place regardless of how he played this game. He could lose, he could win, he could draw, it doesn't matter. So he just decided to have fun, went for the Bongcloud, and in the end Xiong did not go for the most precise continuation at that moment that we've shown, and of course Hikaru won the game. So really crazy stuff. We're not gonna mention the standings just yet, as we are going to show at least one more game. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. You know, if you enjoyed the Bongcloud, do play it. As you can see, it's not that easy for Black to break through, even if he's a 2700 plus grandmaster. So you know, do try it online and have some fun with it. I would like to thank Bart Carpenter, Tom Haythornthwaite, Dirk Van Murik, Sean Chadwick, and Jason Clark for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz tournament with at least one more game, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.